Good afternoon. You're welcome CNN. You're watching CNN News 18. I'm Avantika Singh. Saurya Airlines aircraft has crashed during takeoff in Kathmandu. That's the latest bit of news that we have been tracking right here on CNN News 18. News coming in on this Nepal plane crash. A very unfortunate incident that has been reported from Kathmandu. 19 people, in fact, were aboard the Pokhara-bound plane. This is the Saurya Airlines aircraft where 19 people were on board. It crashed during takeoff at the Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu. The incident happening just a short while ago. My colleague Siddhant is joining us now for the very latest. Siddhant, what else are you hearing from Nepal? Tell us, do you have any news about the extent of casualties, if any?
Well, right now we don't have any confirmation of Avantika as far as casualties are concerned, but we can confirm this for our viewers that 19 people were on board at the time of takeoff, and this Saurya Airlines aircraft, which was a propeller aircraft, was Pokhara bound. And at the time of takeoff, this incident has taken place, and in fact, Avantika, we were in fact pointing out that how Nepal has a very bad history as far as these airline crash are concerned. It's infamous for using old aircraft. Many of these companies operating in Nepal lease out the old aircraft from the other airlines and then use it for their domestic purpose. So that's one of the biggest reasons that Nepal is perhaps the infamous destination for such crashes. And at the same time, most of these aircrafts are not fully repaired on time. There is lack of MRO facility, well-trained pilots. There are a lot of issues which have in fact been flagged off by international aviation experts time and again as far as Nepal aviation industry is concerned. And we are talking about country which is which heavily relies on tourism. And so people use aircraft to go from one place to the another. But with each passing year, we witness such incidents, and Nepal is perhaps again there is a air crash which we are reporting right now. 19 people were on board. We are trying to gather more information about their background, their nationality. But right now, we don't have any such information. All the teams are right now busy doing this rescue operation. In fact, the firefighting teams have also been pressed in. The local police is also on the site. There would be an investigation, I'm sure, that would take place after this particular incident. We'll be able to tell our viewers the reason for this crash. But there could be multiple reasons. Maybe the old aircraft, weather condition, because it's raining today in.
Okay, Siddhant, while you were just giving us very important information, 2 passengers are dead in the plane crash. That's the latest break that we're getting in right now, Siddhant. 2 passengers have been reported dead in the plane crash. Remember, 19 passengers were on board that ill-fated plane. Siddhant, what details do we know? Where was this plane off to when the crash occurred? It does seem to be a massive crash, and I think that the fire has also been doused with the aeroplane breaking out in a huge fire. The flames that we were seeing on our visuals right now, and black smoke billowing out of the wreckage of the aircraft. 2 passengers have been dead. Where were this aeroplane headed to when the crash occurred, Siddhant?
Well, this was a Pokhara-bound aircraft, and in fact, 19 people were on board, and as you just confirmed for our viewers, that 2 people have been declared dead. Their dead bodies have been recovered, and the firefighting teams are on spot, and even the images are so horrific post the accident, post the crash. The plane got gutted, and the firefighters were pressed in to douse off the fire. This is again a very unfortunate tragedy that has taken place, and it requires thorough investigation, thorough probe, so that such incidents can be avoided in future. But Nepal, as we were previously discussing, Avantika, Nepal has this history of poor aviation record. There have been many planes that have crashed because of their because they were old aircraft, no proper MRO facility. The pilots are also not trained. So all these things should be the focus area of the government if they want to avoid such incidents in future. And today also the weather conditions looks like that it's rainy there in Nepal. So the runway was wet. So that could also be one of the reasons for the crash. We really don't know. I mean, let's wait for the investigators to come out with the reason behind this crash. But right now we can confirm that 2 people have been declared dead, 2 passengers. And the firefighting teams are on the spot to douse off the fire and for the rescue work. And we are still trying to gather more information from the airline and from the government of Nepal. We are trying to gather information about those who were on board, their nationality and their names. And once we'll get to know their identities, we can flash it for our viewers so that their families can get to know. But again, a very tragic incident has taken
Oh,
place
absolutely.
in Nepal.
Yes.
Yes, and back to you, Avantika.
Indeed. This aircraft, I believe, Siddhant, has a capacity of 50 passengers. Can you tell us a little bit more about Saurya Airlines? Is it a domestic carrier in Nepal?
Well, yes, it's a domestic carrier in Nepal, and in fact, there are a lot of companies, those who are in this aviation industry in Nepal. In fact, at times they own aircraft, at times they lease from some other company and run it for domestic purpose. So both ways it works in Nepal. We are still trying to gather more information about the aircraft. When was this aircraft taken on lease, and the entire background of the aircraft and this company, Saurya Airlines. And what do they have to say in their defense as far as today's accident is concerned? We are still awaiting official response from them.
What is shocking is something that you were mentioning a while ago about these ill-fated planes and why most of these crashes happened. Nepal, as you rightly said, is notorious for these plane crashes, mostly because of rugged mountainous terrains or a lack of investment in new planes, which then, one wonders that why enough investment isn't being made to procure more aircrafts for the nation.
Well, look, most of these aviation companies are run by politicians in Nepal. Point number one. Point number two, despite relying heavily on the tourism industry, government has done nothing to upgrade the aviation infrastructure. In fact, Avantika, the runways are small. The airports are not fully equipped with the latest equipment. The aircrafts are old. Most of these aircrafts have been leased out to be used for the domestic purpose. The aviation standards are low, and most of the times these aviation don't follow aviation. To hear this, that even Nepal has got a poor record when it comes to doing of the airlines. Even they are very poor. They have a very poor track record as far as the investigation post the crash is concerned. Nepal has this history of infamous for being for running the old aircraft, and because this industry requires a lot of investment, and the government there has always been ignorant as far as this industry is concerned, and this is the reason that time and again we hear this news of crash or an accident taking place. Even as you rightly pointed out, Nepal has a mountainous terrain, but as far as the pilot is concerned, they also don't have. Most of these airlines don't have well-trained pilots at the time, and even when there are some well-trained pilots, international airlines pick them. So that is also one reason that mostly the untrained pilots fly aircraft in Nepal. So there are a few countries in the world like Iran, Nepal. They have a very bad aviation history, and they are into using old aircraft. Iran, obviously, the reason is the American sanctions, but Nepal doesn't have any such sanction. It's all because of the ignorant attitude of the government.
You're so right. And Siddhant, thanks so much for giving us more details about just why does Nepal see so many air crashes. In fact, interestingly, over 30 years, there have been 27 fatal plane crashes in Nepal, citing aviation safety databases. Yash joins us now for the very latest. Yash, give us an update. The latest that we're hearing is that 2 passengers are reported dead. What's the latest that you're getting from your sources? We are seeing that firefighters and other rescuers are there on the ground to try and evacuate the passengers. But do we have an extent on the number of casualties? Do you have that official number?
See, Avantika, as of now, what we are understanding, like you mentioned, the people who have succumbed to this very incident, the number is currently 2. But one thing is for sure that around 19 people were on board. And there is a very clear understanding that no passengers were there on board on that very plane of the Saurya Airlines, which was actually bound to Pokhara. Now, as my colleague Siddhant was also mentioning about the sad state of affairs of aviation sector in Nepal, one thing is clear that the kind of fleet this very airlines had, in fact, Saurya Airlines had only 3 planes in their 3 aircrafts in their fleet. And in fact, this was a domestic aircraft. It was a domestic carrier only operating in around 6 to 7 locations within Nepal. And in fact, in all likelihood, this aircraft, which has been, which has actually met with this accident, in all likelihood is Bombardier CRJ-200, which is a very old aircraft. In fact, the company which produces this aircraft had actually discontinued its production of this very particular model number back in 2006. So we can understand how outdated the aircraft was. And in fact, one thing is also yet to be ascertained, whether these aircraft were actually upgraded with the time or not. What was the exact reason of the failure of what was the exact reason of this very incident? Was it failure from the ATC side? Was it a failure from the aircraft side, or there was some sort of a miscommunication which occurred? So a lot of questions needs to be answered. But one thing is very sure and very clear, that the airlines which has actually been hit by this very incident is Saurya Airlines, and the plane which has actually met with this accident is Bombardier CRJ-200, which is perhaps one of the most outdated aircrafts, we can say. It was a small aircraft, in fact, with a maximum passenger capacity of around 50 passengers. So a lot of questions needs to be answered. In fact, we know that Nepal is not new to these kinds of tragedy. In fact, if we talk about numbers also, Nepal has witnessed number of accidents in past many years, and this is one more. And in fact, tragically, we are understanding that 2 people have died in this very incident, but we are waiting for an official announcement exactly how many people have succumbed to their injuries because of this very incident, and what was the exact reason for this very plane crash.
Indeed. And Siddhant, Nepal averages about 1 flight disaster a year. Those are shocking statistics. And, on one hand, we're talking about the mountainous terrain, the erratic weather conditions, lack of investment. But don't you think that lax regulation also could be one of the reasons for the nation seeing these repeated air crashes?
Well, absolutely. And in fact, many people, those who are frequent to Nepal, their biggest concern is the poor quality of aircraft that are being run by these airlines in Nepal. In fact, Yash spoke about the condition of the aircraft, and he was talking to us about that how this aircraft was really old and should not be in use to this date. But, despite that, these aircrafts are being used because, also the reason is that most of these companies are being owned by the politicians in Nepal. And, there is a bad bureaucratic setup in Nepal. And in fact, the government doesn't pay much attention to these incidents. And this is a reason that, every year, as you rightly said, there is one accident which we get to know happens in Nepal. There are multiple reasons to it. Despite the best aviation experts across the globe talking about it, that Nepal should do something about the aviation safety, nothing has been done. They have poor quality runways. They have old equipments at the airports. Old planes are being in use. The pilots are not well trained. So it's a bad state of affairs as far as the aviation industry in Nepal is concerned. And this is when, Avantika, Nepal relies heavily on tourism. They do they promote their tourism and they attract a lot of tourists every year, not just from India or Southeast Asia, but, whole of the world people travel to Nepal because it's so beautiful. It's a mountainous terrain. And also, Avantika, in Nepal, there are many places where you can only go by taking a flight. You cannot avoid a flight journey. You have to take a flight to reach to a few destinations in Nepal. So, many tourists take flights, but their concern has always been about the poor quality of the aircraft. Even when you sit in those aircrafts in Nepal, you will realize that these aircrafts are of poor quality and are old and should not be used by the airline. But, there is no other alternative. So that has been the situation in Nepal from quite a long time, and the government has completely been ignorant. There is no acknowledgement. Even their investigation record is also very poor, Avantika. After the accident, the
Exactly.
investigation that takes place, they have a very poor track record in fixing accountability and finding out what's the exact reason. Because as I pointed out previously, that most of these airlines are being run by politicians in connivance with few powerful families of Nepal, and that is one reason that government never fixed any accountability or so as to put them behind bars or take some sort of a legal action. Never that happens, and there is no end to leasing out old aircraft. Whenever there is an old aircraft which any airline is wants to sell out, then the Nepalese airline companies are the first one to buy it, and that's a
Right.
very much famous norm across the world, because they mostly run the old aircraft because they don't have deep pockets to buy the new aircraft or to lease out the new aircraft. So that's also the reality, and this is the reason that every year lives are being lost, and and there is one or the other accident taking place in Nepal.
Oh, absolutely. And like Siddharth